Berlin, 2:07 a.m. Rain tapped softly against the hotel window, blurring the amber glow of street lamps over the cobblestone below. On the desk, a half-finished glass of whiskey caught the lamplight, the liquid shifting whenever a draft slipped through the cracked window. I had just left a closed-door meeting with the German Interior Ministry, the kind of meeting most American executives will never be invited to. In 3 hours, I'd be on a flight to Brussels, but before I could loosen my tie, my phone buzzed. The name on the screen, Madison, my sister. The message was short, cold as the air outside. "Illy, we just sold Dad's ranch to pay off Mark's company debt, you'll understand." I read it once, then again, and a third time. Each word hit like a blade, tearing open memories I'd kept locked away for years. The ranch outside Waco, the place Dad turned from dry, cracked earth into something green over 40 years of sweat and grit. The place I learned to ride, to fish, to work until my hands split open. The place where I stood beside his grave and promised I'd protect every inch of it. And Madison thought I'd understand. She never understood me. To her, I was the family's cautionary tale, the older brother drifting from project to project, scraping by on freelance tech gigs that weren't going anywhere. I still remember her saying at a family dinner in front of everyone, "Illy, you've never actually run a real business. Those are just little tech projects." I stayed silent then, but tonight, in the cold of Berlin, silence was no longer an option. Because right now, I knew exactly what I was going to do, something Madison would never forget. Mark was Madison's husband, a man who always talked like he was about to close the deal of the century, even when his company was hanging by a thread. 2 years ago, he'd sunk millions into an innovative logistics platform that was supposed to disrupt the market. What it actually did was burn through investor cash faster than a brush fire in July. The warning signs were everywhere: unpaid invoices, staff layoffs, whispers about defaulted loans. By the time Madison texted me, the banks were circling like vultures. Mark's last hope was a lump sum big enough to make the debt collectors back off. That's when Madison looked at Dad's ranch and saw a lifeline. She told herself it was a temporary sacrifice. Sell the land, save the company, rebuild later. But I knew better. Once land like that is gone, it's gone forever. And knowing Madison, she wasn't just thinking about saving Mark's business. She was thinking about saving face. In her mind, my opinion didn't matter. I was the brother she thought couldn't afford to contribute anyway. Why ask for help from the so-called freelancer with little tech projects when she could handle it herself? That arrogance was about to cost her more than she could imagine. Within an hour of reading Madison's text, I had 3 monitors glowing in front of me inside the Berlin suite. The ranch wasn't just listed, it was buried inside a private auction, invitation only, open to a handful of high-net-worth buyers. They thought they were being clever, keeping it quiet. They weren't. I ran the listing through Carson Systems' internal network, the same network we use to track cyber criminals across continents. In less than 30 minutes, I knew the broker's name, the bidding window, and the top offer on the table. Then I made one encrypted call to a subsidiary most people believe is a Dallas-based real estate firm, Orion Acquisitions. My instructions were simple. Whatever the highest bid is, double it, and make damn sure my name never appears. By morning, Orion was registered as a qualified bidder. By the end of the week, my offer was on the broker's desk, an all-cash number so far above market value it killed any chance of a counter. To Madison, it would look like some faceless Texas investor swooped in with deep pockets. In reality, she had just sold Dad's ranch to me, and I wasn't doing this just to get the land back. This was the opening move in a much bigger game, one she didn't even know she was playing. The deal moved faster than I expected. Orion Acquisitions locked in the bid within days, the contracts drawn up in less than a week. Funds were wired, title transfer queued. All that was left was signatures. And through it all, I said nothing. The family group chat kept buzzing like normal. Madison posted photos of her new and improved office setup, a shiny glass desk, a leather chair that probably cost more than her first car. Mom dropped in recipes she found in old cookbooks asking if we remembered Dad's Sunday chili. I kept my replies short. A thumbs-up emoji here. A polite looks nice there. On the outside, I was just the distant brother checking in from overseas. On the inside, I was counting down the days until the ranch was legally mine. I'd sit in meetings with European ministers while my phone quietly lit up with updates from my legal team. Title search cleared. Funds confirmed. Deed processing. By the third week, it was done. The ranch now sat inside the Carson Legacy Trust, an entity only I controlled. Not even my name appeared on the public record. As far as anyone could see, the land belonged to a sealed trust out of Dallas. Madison still thought she'd handed it over to a stranger, and I let her believe it, because the reveal, that would happen face to face on the very soil she thought she'd sold. Texas heat has a way of sticking to you even in October. I drove the last mile with the windows down, letting the dry wind carry in the scent of mesquite and dust, the smell of my childhood. The house came into view, the wraparound porch Dad built by hand, the big oak out back where he tied the rope swing, the same sun-bleached siding that had been there since I was a kid. But there was one difference. The for sale sign was gone. In its place, mounted on the front gate, gleamed a new emblem, Carson Legacy Trust. I'd timed it perfectly. The courier had dropped off the envelope minutes before I arrived. Madison's SUV was parked next to Mom's old pickup. I stepped onto the porch, my boots heavy against the wood. Madison opened the door, surprise flickering in her eyes. "Illy, what are you?" Her gaze dropped to the thick envelope at her feet. "Go ahead," I said, my voice even. She bent down, tore it open, and froze. Inside was the official title deed stamped and sealed with my name on it. On top, a letter. Her eyes shot up. "You bought it." I didn't blink. "You didn't sell it to a stranger, Madison. You sold it to your brother." Behind her, Mom appeared, scanning the papers over Madison's shoulder. The color drained from her face as she glanced toward the new emblem on the gate. For the first time in years, the porch fell silent. No quick excuses, no nervous laughter, just the weight of what they'd done settling between us. Madison spoke first, her voice tight. "Why didn't you just tell me you wanted it? We could have." I cut her off. "You told me once I didn't understand business, that I only had little tech projects. You didn't want my help when your startup was sinking. Now you want to talk about what we could have done." She looked down, but I didn't stop. "I built Carson Systems from Dad's old garage. No investors, no safety net. Just me, a second-hand laptop, and an idea that turned into a company protecting millions from cyber attacks every day." Her jaw clenched. "You thought I couldn't afford this land. The truth is, I could have bought it 10 times over, but I wanted you to see you don't get to decide who matters in this family." I reached into my bag and set a thick, leather-bound folder on the porch rail between us. "This," I said, "is the Carson Legacy Trust. As of this morning, the ranch is permanently protected. No bank can touch it. No one can sell it, not even me." Madison frowned. "Then what's it for?" I glanced past her toward the open fields, the weathered barn, the corral where Dad taught me to rope cattle. "It's going to be a community center," I said. "For kids from rural towns who want to learn STEM, science, technology, engineering, math. We'll turn the barn into a lab, run satellite internet across the property. This place will feed more than cattle. It'll feed ambition." Mom's hand came up to her mouth. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "Your father, he would have loved that." I nodded. "He told me once that land isn't just for growing crops, it's for growing people. I'm just making sure his land does both." A flash of memory pulled me back, Dad and I, sitting on the tailgate of his truck at sundown, watching the fields glow gold. Someday, he'd said, this land is going to mean more to someone than just a paycheck. Make sure you're that someone. That's the part Madison never understood. To her, this ranch was a bargaining chip. To me, it was the root system of our family, and I wasn't about to let it be cut down. News travels fast in a small Texas county. By the end of the week, half the town knew the ranch had been sold, and that it wasn't going to a developer or a cattle baron, but to me. The reactions split right down the middle. Some people showed up at the gate just to shake my hand. Old ranch hands who'd worked for my dad, teachers from the high school, neighbors who remembered when I was the Carson kid with a busted-up bike and big ideas. They saw the STEM Center as a lifeline, a chance for local kids to dream beyond oil rigs and feedlots. But others weren't so sure. At the diner, I overheard talk about outsiders bringing city nonsense into our way of life. A few worried it would change the character of the land. One man flat out told me, "A ranch should stay a ranch." I didn't argue. I listened, and then I made a promise, the same one I would make to the entire town a week later at a community meeting in the old fairgrounds hall. This land will always keep its roots, I told them. The fields will still be worked. The cattle will still graze, but part of this ranch will grow a different kind of crop opportunity. I laid out the plan. The north pasture stays for cattle. The barn becomes a state-of-the-art workshop and lab. The old guest house gets retrofitted into dorms for kids from farther out. By the time I was done, the room had quieted. Even the skeptics leaned forward a little. I knew not everyone would be on board right away. That was fine, because when the doors opened and the first kid from town sat down at a computer in that barn, the land would speak for itself. 3 months later, the ranch looked the same from the road, same wraparound porch, same oak tree, same stretch of dusty fence line, but step inside and everything had changed. The barn doors stood wide open. Inside, rows of workbenches gleamed under new lights, 3D printers hummed, and kids in dusty boots leaned over laptops like they'd been doing it their whole lives. Out back, cattle still grazed in the pasture, just like they always had. The grand opening drew the entire county. Neighbors, old friends, former ranch hands, even the mayor showed up. Local reporters snapped photos as parents walked their kids through the barn, their faces a mix of wonder and disbelief. I stayed toward the back at first, content to watch. This wasn't about me. Then Madison stepped up to the microphone. She looked over the crowd, then right at me. "For years," she began, "I thought my brother was still figuring things out. I thought I knew who he was. Turns out he was building something bigger than I could imagine for all of us." She motioned for me to join her. The crowd parted as I walked up. "This is my brother, Illy Carson," Madison said, her voice steady but softer than I'd heard in years. "The man who made sure our father's land will keep giving not just to our family, but to every kid who dares to dream beyond their circumstances." The applause swelled, rolling across the open field like a summer storm. I looked out at the faces, some I'd known since I was a boy, some I was meeting for the first time, and for the first time in years, I felt the weight lift. Keeping the ranch had been about honoring Dad. But standing there, I realized it was also about planting something new. As the sun dipped low over the Texas horizon, kids' laughter spilling from the barn, I knew one thing for certain. The story of this land and of our family was only just beginning.